Okay, imagine this. Picture the scene. It's July 4th, 1826. Big day, right? The whole country is celebrating 50 years of independence, a day of huge pride, reflection. And up in Quincy, Massachusetts, in a quiet room, John Adams is dying. And his very last words, reportedly, were, Thomas Jefferson survives.
Wow.
Yeah, the poetry of it, but also the tragic irony. It's almost unbelievable because Adams didn't know.
He couldn't have known.
Exactly. Just hours earlier, that same day, down in Monticello, Thomas Jefferson had also died.
Just incredible timing, almost scripted.
Isn't it? So today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that relationship, this remarkable, sometimes, really tumultuous, but ultimately, I think, incredibly inspiring connection between John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. We're going to try and unpack how these two, these architects of America, went from partners to, well, bitter rivals. How they spent over a decade not speaking, and then somehow, against all odds, they rebuilt that friendship through letters. Our source material for getting into all these details is From Rivals to Friends, the Jefferson-Adams Correspondence, From History in 5 Minutes or Less. And our mission really is to see what we can learn from their story.
Yeah.
About reconciliation, about finding common ground, about how human connection can endure even really deep divides.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating, I think, is how their own personal story, that arc from unity to deep division and then finding their way back, it almost perfectly mirrors the larger American story itself.
That's a great point.
That constant tension we see throughout American history between striving for unity and grappling with these really sharp internal divisions, their lives give us this really powerful lens to look at that.
Absolutely. And it didn't start with division, did it? It started with this incredibly powerful partnership. Back in the 1770s,
right.
Adams and Jefferson, they were absolutely essential figures in the Revolution.
Right.
Yeah, Jefferson, the eloquent Venetian, right? His writing could sway opinions, articulate these huge ideals of liberty.
Yeah, the Declaration itself. And then you had Adams, the fiery lawyer from Massachusetts, full of conviction, really providing that practical, relentless energy in Congress to push independence forward.
They needed both, didn't they?
Absolutely. They were a formidable team, different skills, different temperaments, but they complemented each other perfectly, working, hand in hand to actually make independence happen. It really shows how different strengths, when they're united by a big common goal, can achieve amazing things.
Yeah, that initial bond forged in Revolution, a huge shared purpose that maybe papered over any early differences they might have had.
At a time, yes.
But like you said, mirroring the country's path, their friendship took a really sharp turn once the nation was formed and, politics got involved.
Ah, yes. Politics. That's where the trouble started.
Their ideologies just clashed dramatically. Adams, he was a staunch Federalist. He really believed, you needed a strong central government for stability, for order.
Essential for survival, in his view.
Right. And Jefferson, totally different camp.
Completely. The Democratic Republican leader, championing states' rights, agrarian values. He fundamentally believed power should be kept closer to the people, more decentralized.
So this wasn't just a small disagreement over policy.
No, not at all. This was a deep, fundamental ideological chasm opening up between them about the very future and direction of the country they'd both founded.
And it all just exploded in the election of 1800. I mean, these weren't just random politicians going at it. These were Adams and Jefferson.
Yeah.
How did that election affect them personally?
Oh, it was devastating. Truly devastating. The campaign itself was incredibly vicious. Lots of personal attacks flying back and forth, mudslinging.
Right. Nasty stuff.
Yeah. And when Jefferson actually won, ousting Adams from the presidency after just one term, it just left their relationship in tatters, completely broken.
So the communication just stopped.
Stopped dead. The letters ceased. That friendship, forged in the heat of revolution, it just vanished, replaced by this cold silence. And it wasn't short-lived either. It lasted for well over a decade.
Wow.
It's a really stark reminder, isn't it? That even incredibly deep bonds built on shared historic struggle, can be shattered by political fighting.
A whole decade. Over 10 years, these two giants of American history just avoided each other. Jefferson, he went back to Monticello, right? Threw himself into his estate.
Yeah, retreated is probably the right word. Immersed himself in farming, architecture, his books, philosophy, sort of trying to create his own world away from politics, perhaps.
And Adams?
Adams went back to his farm in Quincy, Massachusetts, a more modest place than Monticello. And he spent his time writing, a lot of writing, and famously kind of lamenting the state of the country, worrying about the Republic's future.
It sounds like a really lonely, maybe even bitter time for both of them. isolated.
I think it must have been full of regret, perhaps. You hear about mutual friends just despairing over this rift, wondering if it could ever possibly be healed.
And Abigail Adams tried, didn't she? His wife.
She did. Abigail, who was always sharp and insightful, she tried to mediate, at least indirectly. She wrote something incredibly poignant, like, "Surely two such men can rise above politics."
Powerful words.
Very. But at that point, neither Adams nor Jefferson seemed ready. The wounds were too deep, maybe. Neither was willing to be the first to, extend that olive branch. Too much pride, too much hurt still lingering.
Which brings us to this kind of unlikely hero in the story, the person who actually managed to bridge that gap.
Dr. Benjamin Rush.
Exactly. A mutual friend, another signer of the Declaration. He was apparently just determined to get them talking again. What was his approach? What did he do that finally worked?
Well, Rush was smart. He understood the loss, not just personally for them, but for the country. The nation needed their wisdom, their perspective, especially as the founding generation was passing.
So he appealed to that higher purpose.
Precisely. His key move came in 1812. He wrote a letter to Adams, and he basically suggested, maybe nudged him, to reach out to Jefferson. His plea was really direct, something like, "The nation needs your voices united once more."
Wow, that's putting it plainly.
It is, and I think the lesson there is the power of that third party, that bridge builder. Sometimes, to heal a really deep divide, you need someone else to make the first move, or at least prompt it. Someone to remind the people involved of something bigger than their own argument.
And Adams, he went for it.
He did. Adams, who could be quite impulsive, apparently took the bait immediately. On New Year's Day, 1812, he sat down and wrote a letter to Jefferson. Short, warm, basically extending a hand.
You know what it said?
The key line, the one always quoted, is Adams writing, "Let us, my dear friend, bury the hatchet." Simple, direct.
Bury the hatchet after all that time.
Yeah. And Jefferson, his response was quick and gracious. He accepted the gesture, and that moment, that single letter prompted by Rush and sent by Adams, that kicked off one of the most incredible correspondences in American history.
It really shows, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Sometimes it just takes one person being willing to make that first, maybe slightly awkward move.
Absolutely. Reconciliation doesn't always need grand apologies up front. Sometimes it just starts with a simple, genuine invitation to reconnect.
So for the next 14 years, these two old men, former presidents, former rivals, they just wrote letters.
Constantly. An amazing exchange. They wrote about everything under the sun. Philosophy, religion, science, agriculture, their families, reflections on the revolution itself.
Was it all serious?
Not at all. It was, by all accounts, equal parts profound and sometimes quite humorous. Their personalities really shone through.
How so?
Well, Adams often played the contrarian, sharp wit, challenging ideas, sometimes a bit grumpy, but always insightful. Jefferson was maybe more the eternal optimist, still writing about lofty ideals, progress.
But they managed it. Despite those fundamental differences that drove them apart years before, how did they maintain respect? That seems key.
That is the key question, isn't it? And I think the letters show us how. First, they always had that bedrock of shared history, the revolution. They both knew what they'd achieved together, even if they disagreed on what came next.
That foundation was still there.
Exactly. And crucially, they didn't ignore their differences. They debated them. But they did it with intellectual curiosity and fundamentally mutual respect. They were arguing ideas, not attacking each other personally anymore.
So they learned to disagree respectfully.
Essentially, yes. They engaged with the disagreements, but from a place of shared values, shared history, and a clear commitment to the friendship itself. That's a huge takeaway for us today, I think. Respect across deep divides isn't about avoiding the tough topics. It's about how you engage with them.
That's really insightful and fascinating. Their core personalities were still there in the letters.
Oh, absolutely. The fiery Adams, the more philosophical Jefferson, it was all there.
And as they got older, did the tone change again?
It did. It became even more reflective. They started musing more about mortality, about the future of the country they'd created, about their own legacies.
Any specific examples?
There's a really poignant exchange from 1825, just a year before they died. Jefferson wrote something like, "We have lived long enough to see the fruits of our labors."
Looking back.
Yes. And Adams replied, "And what fruits they are, may they endure the storms of time." You can feel them both grappling with their place in history and finding this deep common ground in reflecting on what they'd built, despite all the storms they'd personally and politically weathered.
Focusing on the legacy, not the old fights.
Exactly.
Which brings us back full circle to that ending, that almost unbelievable coincidence.
It really is stunning.
This friendship, Surviving revolution, political battles, a decade of silence. It ends in this incredibly poetic way. July 4th, 1826, the 50th anniversary of the Declaration. Both of them gone.
On the same day.
What do you even make of that? It feels almost predestined or something.
It does feel almost mythical, doesn't it? And Adams's last words again. Thomas Jefferson survives. Not knowing Jefferson had already passed hours before at Monticello, the entire nation was stunned, mourning two of its founding titans on the very day that marked the nation's birth. It suggests this bond that maybe even transcended life itself, a final, symbolic, shared act that just cemented their connection to the nation's founding forever.
It's an incredible story. Their correspondence, their whole relationship arc, it's just such a powerful testament to, well, to reconciliation, isn't it? And the strength of friendship.
Absolutely. Despite those huge political differences that genuinely tore the country apart at times, they found their way back. They found common ground in that shared commitment to the American experiment, even if they disagreed profoundly on how to achieve its goals.
And connecting it, like you said earlier, to the bigger picture.
Yeah, I think their story really stands as this powerful counter-narrative. It pushes back against the idea that deep political divisions are just insurmountable, permanent.
That reconciliation isn't possible.
Right. It offers this historical proof, really, that bridging gaps that seem absolutely unbridgeable is possible. It reminds us that our shared humanity, or maybe a shared larger purpose, can actually overcome even the most bitter fights.
So we've taken quite a journey here today, a real deep dive into this incredible piece of history.
Yeah.
Following Adams and Jefferson from revolutionary partners to really fierce rivals, and then finally back to being profound friends. The theme of reconciliation, finding common ground, it just runs all the way through. Their story really hammers home that even the deepest rivalries can eventually find peace.
It does. And maybe a final thought to leave people with is this. If these two men who literally built a nation together and then fought so bitterly they couldn't speak for a decade, if they could find their way back to not just civility, but deep friendship and respect, what does that actually suggest about the possibilities for unity today? In conflicts that maybe feel just as intractable, what does their story tell us about, say, the long game of legacy, both personal and national? And maybe what's the true cost of letting conflicts fester versus the profound rewards of actually doing the hard work of reconciliation?